Hello YouTube, we are at Houston Police Academy. This is the IAS Performance track day thingy. It's dark as hell in here. We got the S14 and the Z. We're doing some testing in the S14 for the Kansas Mayhem Makers 10K. And the Z's just kind of here to have fun, drive with some friends I haven't seen in a while from Lone Star. And just did a couple laps in the Z, feel good. So we're gonna go ahead and get the S14 warmed up. And we're gonna go ahead and take that for a couple laps. Kind of get acquainted, make sure wheel speed's right and all that stuff. Let's do it. I guess we should warm it up.
Oh fuck, it's hot, dude.
Dude, I don't need to be warmed up.
It's see, you're sweaty down to your belly button, and so am I. It's only
your belly button.
It's 10.
Am I? Is it good?
It feels good. Battery won't charge. We thought we fixed it. It's broken. I don't know what's wrong with it. We rechecked everything we did, and everything should be working. I don't know. Maybe the alternator is just bad.
I don't know.
Have you thought about that?
Everything checks out. So
I don't know. So basically, like, we'll turn the car on, and it'll be charging. Well, whenever we fixed it, it was charged like 14 volts with everything on, and it would sit
this
there
morning it was great
for forever. And right now, we turn the car on, and it starts like 13.4, and then at idle, it'll drop all the way down to like 13.0, and then I go do like one pull on the track, it's back to 13.4, and then it just like kind of modulates.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
And the problem is, if that's all it's charged the battery to, the car kind of struggles to start the next time, which is annoying.
Yeah, that's what's annoying. But what do we not have anymore?
No more oil leaks. Yeah, so we fixed that, finally.
Yeah, that big old boy right there. That one.
We are going to do some tire comparisons, so whenever I sell everybody Acceleras, I have more to say. This is the Pro Spec tire. I'm going to see how that thing feels. I just drove on the 100 treadwear Acceleras. So we're just going to do like some back-to-back stuff. That's kind of it. We had like some oil pressure problems earlier. It's really weird. It's like whenever I turned the wheel, the car would lose like 25 PSI of oil pressure. But like, as soon as it went straight, it would gain it back. It was super weird. So Josh McGuire had a...
Shout out to Josh.
Yeah, shout out to Josh. He had a spare Holley oil pressure sensor. So
those are not easy to come by.
Yeah, they're like $200 and like not a common thing. So we threw that in, and it seems to be happy.
So we gained some oil pressure.
Yeah, it's at like 90 PSI now.
I wish everyone could do that. They could just put a sensor in and be like, oh, there's 41
Oh, the
PSI.
car's fixed. Oh.
All right, well, so we're gonna go out on some little baby GTs, and then we're gonna go out on the. I mean, you could clearly see how beefy that is.
It's a big tire. That's the FD Pro tire, the 295/40.
I mean, here's a size comparison. That's ridiculous. Big focus guy. You a big focus guy?
Big focus guy.
Dude, look at that dome on that one. Is that a Tire Streets hat, dude?
Oh shit.
I call these the floppy boys. Floppy boys?
Yeah, because they're just massive.
Okay. All right. So we just got back from Houston Police Academy, and we went out there to make sure the car was reliable for a couple of big competitions we have coming up. But the other thing we did was we went out and we tested tires. So as you guys know, I drive the Tire Streets, which is Accelera tires, which is this one. But I also tested the Pro Spec tire, which is a 255 GT Radial, and then one of the FD Pro tires, which is a 295 GT Radial. So the GT Radials are one of the best tires in FD. Size for size, I think they probably are. Guys on this tire beat the Nitto guys, they beat everybody. It's a super fast tire, super consistent, whatnot. But a lot of people shit all over the Accelera online because they think it's slow, they think it's slippery or whatever. And as somebody who's won a lot of competitions on this tire and have now driven on these for enough time where I feel like I have a good idea of what they're doing, I wanted to make a video kind of comparing the two. So the big thing is, if you take a look at the wear on these tires, so they're kind of dirty, but like there's a pretty good amount of tread left on the Acceleras. There's a little bit left on the edges, but the mills are pretty dead. And it's kind of the same story with the 295. So the big difference between them, in my opinion, is I got 2 laps on both sets of these GT Radials, and I got 12 laps on the Acceleras.
They all ran the same pressure.
Yes, and they were all ran at 12 PSI. They were on the same day, on the same track, and I was driving them all the same way. I'll insert like in-car footage right now, so you guys can kind of see like the difference in throttle commitment and inputs and whatnot between the 3 tires. And admittedly, that did change. I was on throttle more on the GT Radials just because they are grippier than the Accelera.
That's a lot different than last year.
Yep.
You pretty sure you picked a tire up on entry?
Probably.
Hey, did he pick a tire up on entry because it felt like it?
No.
No? Got it.
Well,
God.
you gotta think it's going like this.
Jake, this. Oh my God,
It's different.
dude, I love it so much.
Very different.
Dude, when just when you were running around and you got on throttle, like oh fuck, like slow the fuck down.
He hooked it in and the car was like float. You got the gas car, whole car goes.
Well, so even when he was doing like the warm up laps, when you got it like one, I was like, yeah, there's a fucking corner.
It didn't spin it didn't.
But if you break it down for cost per lap, if you do like a group buy price on these, which I've said it before, you should never pay full price for an Accelera because you never have to. These come out to, I think they're like $120, $130 a tire. These are $165, and I believe these are like $190. So if these are getting 2 to 3 laps, and these are getting 12 to 15 on a car like this, your cost per lap is kind of going from like $20, $25 a tire to like $160 and like $180 a lap. So your cost per lap is like 9 times higher to drive on these than these. And I mean, like Dustin can chime in, like these are definitely a better performing tire than the Accelera in terms of pure speed.
Yeah, the only big difference I noticed other than smoke was how much longer you were on the gas. Other than that, I mean, visually you might be able to see a speed difference, but like we were talking earlier, someone who's a really good driver doesn't necessarily need a good tire to be competitive.
Yeah, I think
in Pro-Am.
Yeah.
And obviously if you go to FD, you can't run that tire.
like this is the 100 treadwear Accelera, and if you're just trying to win Pro-Am and you don't have an infinite budget and all that stuff, this tire is more than capable of winning any Pro-Am in the country, even if your car isn't perfect. Like, that's the tire I ran last year whenever I won Pro-Am, and like I have an okay understanding about how to set up a car, but I don't know all the little tricks that all these guys do. And last year my car left a lot to be desired in terms of setup and all that stuff. And I was still able to pretty easily win Pro-Am on this tire. The big thing to note is if you're planning to go to like the big shootout events, like the Riverside 50Ks, clutch kickers, that kind of stuff.
Where everybody's showing up on 315s.
Yeah, where everybody's on the best of the best with the best of the best on their team, and you're gonna bring this tire, you need to be able to set your car up to be as best as it can possibly be. If you show up with a car that's inferior, this isn't a sticky enough tire to make up for that, but it is a tire that can still win if you know what you're doing. These tires I would consider to be a bit of a band-aid. So like say you have a car that isn't set up well and you show up on this tire isn't going to compensate for that. You're going to have to compensate as a driver, which is hard to do when these guys have such good cars. If you show up on these tires, it can kind of make up for the downfalls in your car and not stress you as a driver. But if you don't have the budget to hire somebody for your team that can make your car worthwhile, make it perfect, make it really good, you probably also can't afford to spend $165 a lap. And that's just kind of the reality of it, because this tire and that tire might have another lap in them, but if you're in competition, you can't use these in another battle because they're not going to make 2 more laps. So your cost per lap goes down so far running the Acceleras that it's pretty hard to argue against them unless you just have more money than you really know what to do with in this stuff. I mean, like, what would you run if you were going to go compete?
Well, I mean, I don't have an infinite budget. I would obviously run the 651.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm smart enough to figure out how to get the tire to work good.
Well, I mean, I think you had my car working well enough where I could go win any competition in the country on that tire.
I mean, it pulls the front end off the ground sometimes. So I feel like neither one of these 3 tires made the car look visibly different. Like if you were to take a picture, other than the amount of smoke the GT Radials apply, there was no physical difference as far as like how high the front end came up and how much the back looked like it was working. Like there was, if you were to take a picture from both tires, I couldn't tell you what tire you was on.
Yeah, I mean, from the driver's seat, you can kind of tell, like, I was entering at Police Academy pretty much as fast as I could go, and I was entering in a way that set me up to run an outside line, and the Accelera pretty much worked really well, and it allowed me to run the line that I anticipated running. And then when I switched to the 255, because I went in this order, I went from the Accelera to the 255 to the 295, I had to kind of adjust my entry point because as soon as I got on power, the GT Radial produced enough forward drive to drive me off of my outside line. So as a driver, there's obviously more drive in these tires. There's more grip in the tire. And you have to adjust that a little bit in tandem against fast cars. That would definitely be useful. But if you know what you're doing and your car works really well on the Accelera, there's no reason you can't be just as competitive, in my opinion. You just have to be smart about it. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know where your tire is good and where it isn't.
We also didn't change anything. They all ran the same pressure. We didn't change ride height. We didn't change squat. We even had the same amount of fuel in it every lap.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had the car gripped up pretty good to run the Accelera.
Yeah, these were all ran at 12 psi cold
Yeah.
across the board. The big thing I did notice was the Accelera. I can pretty much put on a sticker set and go drive straight to the line, and the tire's going to perform the same as it would after like a hefty burnout box session. The 255, I definitely think needs a little bit of warming to work. And I did the longest warm-up session on the 295, then I did a rolling burnout to the line, and it still wasn't until the second lap that I felt like it was actually up to temperature enough to work like it's supposed to. Like that tire on the first lap felt more slippery than either of these two did. The second lap though, that's where that tire came to the zone, and I think that big sidewall, there's just so much more air in the tire that it needs to be hotter to work. But I don't know, like unless you're making 1,000 horsepower, that tire I actually think is better than the 295.
It looked better.
But that's another thing to think about is if you're having to worry about getting so much heat in the tire before every single lap you do, that's just more to think about as a driver, whereas these two need less. I think that's another advantage. It's just kind of less on your mind. I'm a big proponent of if you can have less to think about and less concerns as a driver before you go into the battle, that's better for you.
So I have a question. How much more consistent from the first lap to the last lap each tire were compared to each other? So like for the first lap you did with the Accelera, how good was it on the last lap you did with it versus the same thing with the 255 and the same thing with the 295?
I would
That's
say,
important too.
so the 255 was really good on the first lap, and I think the second lap was about the same. And it's pretty much, like, there's probably another lap in this point if you made it, but it's not going to do another battle, right? So it's pretty much the same start to finish. The 295, like I said, I don't think I was aggressive enough in the tire warm-up to get enough heat into it for it to work on the first lap, so it was actually better on the second lap. The Accelera, I would say the first 6 laps were its like optimal grip level. Like for 6 laps in this car, this tire was about as good as it can be. And then after that, it would probably taper off, I don't know, a few percent of performance a lap, and by the last lap it was maybe 10 to 15% less optimal. Is that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
it's just less responsive.
Yeah, like there, it definitely tapers off a little bit. It's not exactly the same start to finish, but I don't think any tire is. But in the competition aspect, you're not going to go do 16 laps on one set of tires. You're going to change them.
Yeah, or you're going to do 2 and then you're going to sit out for an hour.
So what I like to do with this tire is I'll drive it to about this point and I'll just pull it off the car, and then I go get 40 laps on it on my 350Z. So I don't often run these Acceleras any lower than this on this car anyways, but for about 6 laps or so, they're at their optimum, which is a little lower than these tires for sure. This tire definitely offers less forward and side bite than those two. But at the end of the day, I really can't argue with the fact that this tire got 6 times a lap and still has more tread life left than either of those two.
And it's cheaper.
Yeah, and it's $40 cheaper. I mean, if you buy it retail, it isn't, but if you have 5 or 6 friends that go drifting, hit them up. Everybody buys, 10 tires, and then you get them for 35, 40% off. There's no reason to ever spend full price on these. Yeah. So, I mean, this is, in my opinion, the ideal Pro-Am tire. If I was driving FD, you obviously can't use this tire, but I would probably go towards more something like this, where it's maximum performance, and if you're an FD, you should have.
Well, if you're going to go to Pro Spec, you're definitely going to have to run that.
Yeah, you have to, but even if it was
you're going to have
open,
to deal with that at 2,900 pounds.
yeah, even if it was open where you could run whatever you wanted, I would still probably lean more towards a tire like this, because if you're going FD, you should have the backing and a solid enough program where money really doesn't matter that much.
That's a big price increase.
It is. It's $40 more tire, and it lasts a sixth of its life.
Well, you gotta think. Say you do like an FD type deal. Say you do get 12 practice laps. Okay, well, 6 of those, you're changing tires.
Yeah.
Whereas you use Accelera, you could probably get all 12 laps in.
Yeah.
And then literally, if depending on if it was budget friendly, you could literally go all the way to the final in a top 32 battle in the same pair of tires, depending on the track.
I mean, the other thing to think about is if you're on a tire like this and you're going to like a top 32 competition, and say you can get, like we're saying, say you get 6 really good laps out of them, right? That's your top 32, your top 16, your top 8 battle. And then you have one more set of wheels, and you have your top 4 in your final, and then you have enough tire left for one more time. Whereas say you show up on one of these and you get 2 laps, you're gonna need 5 sets of tires just to get through competition, or with no breakages. So then, or no one more time.
Think about it, and wheels.
Yeah. So then, if you need at least 5 pairs of tires, you need at least 10 wheels.
You're not going to be able to have time to change wheels.
Yeah, you can't get tires out in the middle of competition. So like running a tire like this might net you a little bit of performance increase, but unless you just have an unlimited budget, there is no reason to pick this tire over this tire unless you have to, unless you're an FD.
Yeah.
But
Well, where are we going next?
well, we got Mayhem Maker 10K in Kansas on August 19th, and then the weekend after that, we got the last round of Full Lock Drift Pro-Am. I haven't done a round of Pro-Am this year. I've been letting them have all the fun, but I figured I'd go into the last round and shake up the points, ruin somebody's prospect dreams or something. I got free entry for that because I podiumed in Pro 3 or whatever.
Yeah,
So.
we'll bring the Accelera and show them what's up.
Yeah, we'll go drive on this and go beat some people on that tire and Felinos and people who have too much money. But yeah, other than that, the car did really well at the test day. We got an alternator problem we probably need to sort out at some point. I don't really know what's wrong with that.
That's our only issue.
Yeah.
No more leaks.
Mechanically, it's fine. There's no nagging oil leak anymore. Yeah, car did good. I just want to kind of go over these tires. I felt like that was a pretty interesting topic because this is a 100 tread wear tire that's like marketed towards competition, and everybody says that it's not good enough. And these are Formula Drift tires, the best you can really buy. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but we're going to go compete on this. We're going to go beat some people, and we'll film it all and show you after it's done.